Hey, everybody.
Everybody.
Hi.
Hey, hey.
I'm Brian Harlan Brooks, Darell J. Hunt, and Jamal Story. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Glad to see you this week. This is usually our off week. We are here to talk about the reality of reality.
Sips coffee, drinks water.
I'm a little tired of reality TV, and I'm a little tired of the reality of the reality. Let me tell you what I mean. I mean, in the world that we're in right now, and I don't want to be heavy this week because everything has been so heavy we've been going through. But the truth of the matter is, the real truth is, without the conflation of course, white, supremacist, patriarchal society, heteronormative, but without reality TV and without social media, all compressing it into one lane, I don't believe we get Donald Trump. I believe we are in a space without that. I believe his fame is because our attention spans and our way of communicating has become shortened into sound bursts, stock characters, and archetypes. And we believe those archetypes. And as long as reality characters, because it's always been there in American society, right? If we go back, we've always had the cult of personality and celebrity as part of our political stratosphere. That's part of it. The first time I can remember, if we go back to Reagan, and I remember as a young man thinking, how do we get an actor as the politician? But if we go back before that, if you look at JFK, he's so handsome, and he becomes a star, a political star, because of his attractiveness, because we have TV at that point. So I think we've been marching to this direction where we flatten out the expertise and all the things that make somebody what we used to say was worth watching. The great part about it is regular people get access that may not have been there before. The great part about it is we get to organize across the land. So you can organize revolutions all like that, where it would take months and years. The bad thing is you can organize like that. And some of the due diligence and the work and the expertise, not the elitism necessarily, but the expertise that goes into speaking to people becomes absent. And so as blessed and excited as we are here, and I am, to have this platform where I can just step up and say, hey, we're going to do a show, and we're going to have a show. The content, how we got here, how we came together, there was a lot of studying and work as individuals in our field to be able to speak to what we're speaking, to create the audiences that we have. And I think Donald Trump, reality TV, it just has me exhausted, y'all. What do y'all think?
Well, speaking, you mentioned Reagan, and my cousin Rosalind and I were discussing this at some point, how we could not call to mind a single white man who was a celebrity, was or is a celebrity, who ran for office and lost. We couldn't come up with one. Jesse the Body Ventura won. Trump won, obviously. Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California. Sonny Bono, I can't remember what municipal office he held, but he did hold an office. We could not come up with a single one, and some of that, a large portion of that, has to do with America's obsession with celebrity, and the fact that celebrity is going to supersede all of the other requirements for any kind of job description that should matter when it comes to the offices that control what it is that goes on with the people in these places. And that's sad. That's part of that right there, that even if you aren't firmly aware of what that is, it's still part of the general zeitgeist that kind of ruins it for you as far as reality television.
Well, and it's go ahead, Darell, go.
For me, the thing is, the section of the general public that has no level of discernment, where they allow themselves to be governed by the workings of reality TV, whether it's fashion, whether it's the house that you live in, like people, whatever franchise the city is rooted in. Like, there are people who are not able, and I've dealt with quite a few of them online and unfortunately in person. There are people who cannot say, oh, this is entertainment. They don't know the business. They don't know that things are directed and scripted and people have storylines and things are specific. They think these things are really, really happening. I mean, even to the point where, like if you look at some of the franchises, I won't say any names, if we know cities, they might dress up the scene where they're shooting to be like some extravagant location. And you'd be like, child, that's right over there on Piedmont and so on, so on. So that's a basic neighborhood, but it's production and it's spectacle. So I'm here for the right to have it. But the problem comes in socially when people can't say this is real versus this is entertainment.
Right.
Well, and that's the insidious part, I think, that has been about it is that you're taking it in not seriously, because honestly, I don't think anyone watches reality TV, even our favorite things, as 100% real. We watch it and we go, this is fun, this is good, and it's designed for you to take it lightly. But I have a theory that it seeps in and you start to live with these characters, which is kind of why I became an artist, because I wanted to create a world and then say things through the creation of these characters that you can step out of. And I think what's insidious about reality TV and the reality of that is you don't step out of it. So once you create that branding and that character, you can no longer distance yourself from it. I liken it to Disney World. I don't know if you guys know this, but when you work in Disney World, when you put on Minnie Mouse, they call you a helper. You're not, you don't ever say on your resume, I played Minnie Mouse. I was playing Minnie Mouse. So the great thing about that is for the park, Minnie Mouse always becomes the star. So no matter what kind of debauchery you do outside, Brian Harlan Brooks never becomes connected to Minnie Mouse.
Yeah.
So I was one of Minnie Mouse's helpers. I am never Minnie Mouse.
Right.
Me as the actor, I get to take Minnie Mouse off, put her down.
You cannot take your reality television off. That's you.
No, you can't. You can't take Nene Leakes off.
No.
You can't take Thea Bailey off. You can't take all those things off. And I think when reality TV started, if we go back to the first quote reality show with Heather B and all of them on MTV, and we go back to the first, I think in that moment, like all of us, because we're in theater, we've always been like, there should be a camera backstage because the stuff that goes on backstage. But the truth of the matter is, there are moments that are entertaining, but there are long stints of moments where you're like, okay, they're changing the costume again. Okay, they're being professional. In order to really get that, you would have to film it for a year to really be able to splice it up and bring it together and get some reality to it. And so once we start making more money off reality TV, like everything, it dips into the capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal, misogynist society, and it flattens everything out. So where reality TV started with men and women equally in the space, it starts to become more and more women-centered, but not women-centered for women or about women, but really to exploit what women do, right? So we start to get Maury Povich, and we start to get, what was that man's name? Jerry Springer. And
Jerry Springer. Yes.
And maybe those shows like precursors to reality TV as well, right? So we have all those shows. Even the Oprah show when it started is interviewing people, and
Sally Jesse Raphael had the same problem for a moment. Geraldo just, it went downhill.
I mean, how many paternity tests can we have? And then we have the judge shows. We have Judge Judy, and she's got like, what does she make, $1 million an episode? That's a rich woman, and those are binding arbitrations, but they are not. That's not how a court goes, right? And I think to a degree, we all know that about a court, because you may go to a court and see, okay, that's not what really happens. You may have family members, but I think when we go to reality TV and we film inside of people's homes, and then the expectation is that this is real, and then those people, I think to me it reminds me of The Blob. It kind of gets on you, and you can't extradite yourself from it. So even if when you started,
I don't remember that. I'm a little too young.
There was 2 remakes, darling. 2.
Too young for what?
For what? The Blob.
I just think we need to be mindful about our references here. For those of us who weren't, here.
You were born in the 70s.
I'm the youngest on the thread, and if I remember The Blob, surely.
Somebody asked you. Somebody asked.
And this is my thing. When we look at when people say reality TV, like you said, my mind always goes back to Heather B, Kevin, the Julie, the Southern girl, really country. Like they were in a basic apartment. They all talked about needing money. They all talked about needing a job. And then as the show got bigger, all of a sudden they in fancy places with big screen TVs, and there's a pool in the back. Like when you look at Tyra Banks, she self-produced the majority of her first season of Top Model. Then as it became popular and they could commodify, all of a sudden it gets more fancy. And then there's one young lady who was on the tattoo show. I can't remember her name, light-skinned young lady, like brown skin and locks. And she said she stopped them from filming in her house because she had a friend who was coming over for the weekend, or someone was coming for something, and their plans changed. So she's like, well, you could just crash with me. So she let them sleep on an air mattress in the living room. The way they spun it, she said it was like she was sleeping on an air mattress and she was on hard time and she was broken. She was like, why would they do me like that? But people don't understand that you don't always have the final say when it comes down to production and editing. Just like Quad from Married to Medicine. People were wondering what was going on with her wigs and her hair on the promo shots, all that kind of stuff. She was like, I don't have control. So she stood and took the picture, and then they went and did whatever. And because she signed a contract that allows them to do that, she looking a fool, like somebody that chewed all her lace, and it's just the wig right. It was terrible.
Yeah, and of course, and some of it very deliberate. There's a show on right now that I urge everybody to watch, and I saw this show. It was a recommendation. It's called Unreal, and you can see it on Hulu, I think, at the moment. And I was encouraged to watch it. And of course, it's about a very, very intrepid production person. She is a producer. And the first thing you need to know is that the producers on reality television shows, there are several producers, and each one of them is responsible for a certain number of contestants. And this particular scripted show about reality television sort of deals with those producers and what they are trying to do to manipulate the circumstances. So it's not as simple as what we used to think is, oh, it's all just scripted. It's all scripted, but we're just told that it's not. It's worse. It's that they are creating scenarios. They are taking all of your personal information, the stuff that you would give to an insurance company about what, so that the underwriters can decide whether or not you actually qualify for the plan. They are taking all of that information, your medical history, your traumas, your personality, the members of your family, all that kind of relationships. They are taking all of that and they are using it to fashion circumstances that you will then react to and then shoot that. And so, to Darell's point, her wig, there might have been some deliberate, let's make her look crazy right now so that because we know that this one's going to say such and such, and let's just see how it all falls down. And the thing is, they are rated and paid and sort of valued as producers based on their fitness in making the most watchable and most dramatic and horrific things happen on screen. Now I'm watching this TV show called Unreal, and I'm thinking, well, this is clearly not how it goes. I mean, it couldn't be this bad. There were things that happened on the show Unreal, the show inside the show, that I kind of went, that doesn't go down that way. And it turns out, yes, it absolutely does. You wonder how these people sleep at night when that is the job description, is to make that happen. And it brings up something that Brian and I talk a lot about, and I'm sure Brian and Darell talk about it too, this idea of mental health and how dangerous it can be for people going into reality shows dealing with mental health. There were 2 suicides from the show Love Island within the last couple of years.
There was a suicide on, I think it was the Housewives of Beverly Hills. One of the husbands killed himself as well.
One of the husbands.
Yeah, because nothing prepares you for now you're a social media star, now you're a television star, now you're all these things, and nothing prepares you for life after that. In other words, once they've gone, thank you so much, it's over, thank you.
Well, I want to take that and segue into where we're going with the conversation, right? Everybody knows we're going to get to it, but we're going to take our time to get to it so we can set up this context. But we're starting with hip hop, right? So when hip hop comes along, it's music coming from the culture, right? It's music coming from Black culture. It's music coming about experiences. It has experiences that are rough and difficult, but it is hosting the gamut. And then it culturally hits the larger culture. And once again, the culture is white supremacist, patriarchy, misogyny, and homophobia. And those things hit hip hop, and unfortunately, some of our elders left hip hop to burn because it didn't fit the respectability look. And so because that was over here, it was able to be picked apart by the society in which we live. And white producers came along and wanted to make the most money out of it. And to what you're saying about reality TV, if I want to make the most money as quickly as I can, I'm going to go to the saltiest, sweetest food. And I'm going to go to the most violent and sexiest and controversial moments. So those moments become the moments that hip hop starts to become popular for. And hip hop, I saw an interview a long time ago that said there's hip hop and then there's hip hop's illegitimate cousin, hip hop. So there's hip hop where people are making genuine music where their heart is pumping and it's for the culture, about the culture, with all of its flaws and personality, but it's coming from this quote overused word authentic place. And then there's hip hop for sale, which is glossed over, repetitious, the least amount of thought and diversity within it. And so hip hop, I think, comes along and hits reality TV, and it creates this perfect storm where now you have artists where before hip hop, artists, black artists, white artists could sing music that they connected to, but they were not synonymous necessarily with. So you could be a crooner and you could be a happily married man and sing sad songs, or you could be sing party songs and never actually go to a party because it was an expression of art within you that came out of you. Then hip hop hits and we go, you are now what the song is. So in order to be an authentic hip hop person, you got to be able to hold this hip hop in the street and do this rap, which is all fine when it's coming from the culture, but it becomes problematic now when I start talking about gangbanging. I start talking about beating people up. I start talking about bitches, hoes, fags. I mean, you know, for me, I'm first generation hip hop, and on the thread the other day, for some reason, I was thinking about hip hop and I was thinking about WAP and all the controversy about WAP. And I had a couple conversations online, and one of the things just led me to think about how do I feel about hip hop in general. And I always had a love-hate with it because from day one, when I would hear the Rapper's Delight and they said something about Superman and his tights and him looking gay, I knew they were talking about me. And that's Rapper's Delight, the very first one, right? And then so and I was a good dancer. I could be in the party I have my Kango and my Lee jeans with my, the permanent seam that I made my mother sew down the front of the Lee jeans. Y'all don't know nothing about that. And I used to have my shelter.
We just did a Niagara heavy starch and ironed us a good crease. So we
would sew the crease in, and you had my shell top and my Kango, and we would go to the party. But every song eventually was going to call me a faggot, was going to call me out my name, was going to talk about being gay. And as hip hop became more pop music, rather than for the culture, it became more of that. And I would find myself sitting in corners or feeling sad at the party and having to leave because I just didn't feel like I fit the part. And what I became attuned to at that age is the exploitation of that reality. So all those rappers wrote those words. They were rappers who wrote all the kind of different words. And that was the beginning of my falling in love with women rappers. Women rappers were the first place I felt like I could have hip hop and have my personality. I could have Salt and Pepper, and I could have Sister Soldier, and I could have Queen Latifah, and I could have MC Light. And then we get to the Roxanne Shante, and we could have all of those things. And it was kind of balancing out. And then we get to the sexy rappers, right? Then we get Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown. And now, let's be clear. I was 19, 21, 22 when they came out. So that's right in the prime when I'm like, yes, how nasty can we get? So I'm listening to this and I'm on with it. But when I see Lil' Kim squatted down in her first cover with and the first lyrics, I used to be scared of the
now I throw lip.
Now.
Right. And then
and with that, you all were seeing that in larger cities. Imagine what it was like me being in Greensboro, North Carolina, driving. I remember the first time I was leaving downtown, driving down Elm Street, and there was a building, and it was like 3 brick like art. It was like the flat building, but the design was like arches, and Lil' Kim was in all 3 of them. And I was like, but I didn't want to look and like say anything in the car, because this is the Bible Belt, this is the South, and for us, it was a thing where some of us that was church kids, we had to sneak and listen to it. We couldn't listen to Lil Kim and all of them around like older people and stuff like that. So it was all of those things we had to navigate just to have some type of attachment to what to me at like 18. No, when was Queen Bitch? I was in high school. That felt like liberation that they were able to just talk about that stuff. But while I was not able to discern at that time the true possible detriment to young women who, again, could not discern, this is Little Kim rapping about her experience. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I shouldn't be in this car with this dope boy. Because I don't live a life that's conducive to me surviving mentally or physically in jail.
And I think that comes to and then at the same time, right before that, we got Biggie. Now I think Biggie's a great rapper, but I didn't like Biggie from day one because I was the kid who was told, go to school, do your thing, make your life, be a good kid. I had to fight dope boys on my way to work at times, on my way to school at times. I was called faggot by those boys. So my love affair with that kind of hip hop was not there. Although I knew the words, I could hear it, I could get the bump, but I was getting beat up by those boys. So when he comes out and he says, or I'm fighting those boys, because I didn't lose a whole lot of fights in my life. But I'm coming.
There's that.
I'm demure and soft. I would never.
There's that. No. We're going with the first one. We're going with what? No, yeah, you came out. It's okay. You said it.
So I'm saying, when Biggie comes out and he's like, this goes out to all those teachers who said I wasn't gonna be nothing, and all those people used to call the cops on me when I was just selling on the corner to make money for my kids. And I was like, I can't get behind it. Now his cadence, his rap, his delivery, all there for it.
That's why I liked Biggie, his ability to tell stories and his musicality, his raw talent. What I also liked about Biggie was that he was for the majority real. He was like, what else am I going to rap about? I'm from Brooklyn. This is what I do. Even though he had a mother that didn't raise him, those kind of things, he's like, what else am I going to rap about daffodils and all that kind of stuff like that? So that's one reason I was like I love Biggie's music. But then of course as I back up, I was already kind of prepped through ignoring homophobia because I grew up in the Pentecostal church. So you listen
right.
And you, yes, amen. And then when he started calling people all kind of names, stuff like that, you kind of tune that out. So you're kind of used to it. You be like, but he sure can preach, which basically meant he could like squall and holler and vibe the tune. So I was actually kind of prepped on how to.
Right. We have another. Oh, I was gonna say, since we're dealing with hip hop, both sides of it. I mean, I like the idea that Brian, that you mentioned it in sort of a duality of hip hop. We have someone here that can weigh in on that and is burning inside.
Bring her in for the next part because we're going to be talking about WAP, and I don't think that it's right for three men to be discussing WAP without at least one woman. We're supposed to have Kimberly Nicole here. We had technical difficulties last week, but she's go ahead, Jamal. Angela-Renee Coakley is going to join us right now.
Angela-Renee Coakley is here, everybody. Go ahead. I think you're on mute, my love. You can take yourself off.
Still going third.
See, look, I wanted to be careful. I wasn't trying to just bust up in, shake my tambourine and clap when he was talking about Pentecostal church. I was like, wait, they're talking about Brooklyn. Hold up. What's
right.
up? Anyway.
I mean, no, I was just gonna say we're glad to have Angela-Renee.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Angela-Renee does a whole lot of behind the scenes, on the side of the scenes, on the other side of the scenes, sometimes under the scenes, on top of the scenes. She does a whole lot involving the scenes that we deal in the entertainment industry. And knows a whole lot, has a whole lot of insight, and has been in this game for a very, very, very long time. So thank you for coming in and weighing in.
Thank you for having me. So let's go on. I'm itching to get into this discussion. I don't know where we are in it, but I'm ready. Do you want me to say? Oh, I know Brian wanted me to kind of say, you know, that I'm an experiential producer with background in live music, television, film, and special events for all kinds of people. Mostly like R&B and some hip hop, but not as much. And and I, like not quite like you guys, but I did a little twirl here and there. Ailey trained girl. So you have that.
She talking about them.
I think twirl, man. Stop it.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So Angela, I wanted to bring this up. So so we all know WAP hit the airwaves about a week ago, and it broke the internet for at least 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
For those of us on Beyond, we are all of a certain age. So I think we all can go, heard it all before, because we've seen it all before in terms of WAP.
Right.
To a degree. We've seen versions of it. We talked a little bit about Little Kim. We talked about Foxy Brown. We all know who Trina is. We all know
Adina Howard. On before that, Adina Howard with the Freak in Me and Millie Jackson. We can go back to Millie Jackson.
She's sitting on the toilet on the cover of one of her albums.
Yes. Yeah. And wait, she's from Teaneck, right, Brian? So she lived in Teaneck for a while. I was friendly with her daughter for quite some time.
Of course she's from Teaneck.
Yeah. She's in Atlanta now, but yes, I knew her growing up as a kid. Millie Jackson. Who else? What's her name? LaWanda Page. Remember, she was.
Yes. My grandmother used to have her 8 tracks, and she was raunchy. I love
it. So long before Cardi B and those folks, we had those folks the legendary LaWanda Page, Millie Jackson. I mean, these women were even Billie Holiday and who else? Who was it? What's the other one? Moms Mabley.
Yeah,
she had some raunch. Moms Mabley had some raunch,
and she had raunch, and she had what did she have?
We also have to acknowledge that she had the regular shows that everybody loved, but she also went by Mr. Mom.
That's what I want to say. I didn't want it. Right.
No, someone tried to correct me on that, saying that I was using it as a pejorative on social media. I was like, darling,
she didn't take it that way.
Whoopi Goldberg did a whole documentary about her. Help yourself to all the information. She was particularly fine with that, and there were pictures of her in a tuxedo, top hat, leaned over, wonderfully sad.
Private rooms with all kinds of Richard Pryor and all these other people coming to see her. She was the business. So anyway, okay, Brian, where are we?
Absolutely. I think so for me, I when I got into this conversation, I was on Kimberly Nicole's page, and she had put up a whole conversation where she was talking about how much people were talking about WAP, right? And she said, I'm going to read what she said. So just hold on. She uses some emojis. Everybody hold on to your wig, to your purse, to your booty, to all the parts of you. So she says, folks talking about morals and the poor women of today with their dumb asses when it comes to WAP video. I can guarantee stayed with something shoved in there, hole emoji, lips emoji, cat emoji, peach emoji, and their body, or stayed showing their thing, the eggplant emoji, up any hole, lip emoji, cat emoji, peach emoji, available past, present, and future. I can bet money on that. So what I interpreted that to mean was that a lot of people who were clutching their pearls about WAP were participating in all of the activities described within WAP.
Right.
And I understand that, right? I think that's a valid critique. Well, I asked some sincere questions. At least I thought they were. So let me tell you how a man who considers himself to be an advocate and ally for women stepped in it in the wrong way, I think, as I found out towards the end. So I asked some sincere questions. I said, sincere questions. Here, do you think Cardi B and Megan are controlling all the imagery and the ideas? Do you think women are making the most money from this work? Do you think Black people made the most money from this? Do you think it being marketed to an adult or child audience? Do you think children would benefit psychologically from this kind of work? Do you think work like this has ever contributed to the greater liberation or equitable treatment of women? Do you think the video is an actual or healthy description of sexuality or sexual liberation for anyone? Do you think men and boys that consume this kind of art will have a healthier respect for the women in the video or the women they interact with as a result. So that was the beginning of our conversation. What came back at me was these questions are patriarchal in and of themselves. Because I think that the women in the thread found the conversation, the questions to be rhetorical. And so here's why I created Beyond the Thread. I created Beyond the Thread because I think both the women I was speaking to at the time, who I have the utmost respect for, and myself were coming from two totally different points of view, and we greeted each other in that thread. Their point of view was coming from a space where men are telling them that they can't be sexual. That in any time they're sexual, they have to be responsible for all of the ills of society, and they have to fix everything that's ever gone wrong. And then I'm coming from a side where people are like, this is empowerment for women. And what I know is this. I know that Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion do not own Atlantic Records. I know that there were multiple writers in the room. I know that there were multiple directors and cinematographers in the room that were not women. I know that what I saw as a director and choreographer myself is for the pleasure of men. Now, if by happenstance it happens to empower women and women like it, great. But I know men, even, and as gay men, we know this because in part of our liberation has been really in exploiting our sexuality. Part of our liberation has always been about sex. You can't go to a party without somebody with a six-pack ab on the flyer. So I get that. But what I learned in the conversation is that I stepped into a space and those questions came across as making those women responsible. How do you feel about that, Angela-Renee?
Yeah, there's a lot here. I don't want to put, Kimberly Nicole is not here to sort of defend her point of view. But what I'm seeing is maybe from your point of view, you feel like you're an ally, especially to women, and you're protective of us. But from either those women and some women, that was a sort of like restricting point of view, because they feel like, hey, you know what, you guys. I mean, think about this. When Michelle Obama was in the White House, I can't remember exactly which incumbent complained about her showing her shoulders. You know what I mean? Her arms, like put your arms away. And compared to 45 that we have now, who talks about grabbing women's crotches, whatever. And that's a whole other story. So you see what I mean? So I feel like there's a double-edged sword here. And I know you meant well, but for us, it's like, we want to do whatever we want to do. And if that empowers those two women, if they felt like that was the thing to do, I mean, most of it, it was content. It was fun. It was playful. It was their thing. That was their self-expression. That's their art. God bless them. But to then try to, question it and say, hey, is this good for all women? Like, that's unfair. That's an unfair perspective, because then it starts to marginalize our sexuality. It's like, wait a second, hold on. And then we go back to men trying to tell us what to do with our bodies and that whole thing. And I don't think that's what you wanted, to do. But in your way of being an ally and protective of Black women, you were like, wait, hold on a second. So,
and for me,
right, I think
for me again, it's the line of the general public not being able to separate how this type of art should be applied when they start making general decisions. Going back to you can't, was it Bodak Yellow, Cardi's song?
Right, and that sounds similar anyway. Bodak Yellow and whatever tune it sounds.
So I have always said we all have the right to do everything, but at some percentage, we should think about the responsibility we have to our audience. And I don't place that rule any higher or greater on anyone, whether they're male, female, non-binary, whatever. The problem that I have with the content is that when you sit down and want to have a mature conversation with people, they consider you to be patriarchal, or they consider you to be in some way phobic as to whatever their freedoms are. Case in point, there was a comedian, I won't say his name because I don't particularly care for him, but he had a whole room full of women, over 500 women in a theater. And he said, he was giving them all these ghetto tropes and shit like that. So he was like, and ladies, if a man cannot stimulate, he should not be allowed to penetrate. And all the women went up, yeah. And he said, drop the beat. And the first line you heard was, nah, bitch, you can't fuck with me if you wanted to. And I said, in that moment, to contextualize it, that song did not fit that message. He was just using what was popular at the time. And I asked friends of mine, friends of mine, I said, who was bumping the song? I said, do you own a pair of Louboutin pumps? They was like, no. I said, well, she done kicked you to the curb too. And I said, if you listen to the content, and he was charging these women to act a certain way and require men to be respectful of them. But at the same time, he gonna start off a song where she says, I might just sleep with your man, I might just chill with your crew. Why are we celebrating this content in the song? I'm not particularly saying she doesn't have the right to sing that, but if you're going to have a whole room of women and you're speaking from a place of empowerment, first of all, that's kind of dangerous for a man to be speaking empowerment for a complete room of women. And he didn't have a woman with them. He didn't have a woman artist. He didn't have a woman speaker. And how are you going to approach them from a place of empowerment and then play that song? Of all the powerful women, of all the songs that women say it again?
What I learned in my interaction, and I think Angela-Renee is hitting on this, is that women should speak for women. And even in that aspect of that man trying to, quote, empower women, it really wasn't his place to do so, which really made the moment even more faulty, right? So he's telling women how to be with men as if women can't figure that out themselves, right? And then I think in my aspect of it, trying to be protective of women, I'm talking over what they feel. So they're like, I got this, boo. I know how I feel about this. What I learned, but what I was trying to point out in my kind of heavy-handed conversation, which I think was out of context in what Kimberly Nicole had put out, what I was trying to put out is that the whole industry and the environment that you're dropping WAP into is patriarchy. Right. Mm-hmm. So I can make my own black gay liberated movement. I can put my crop top on and I can vogue with the best of them. And I can be like, yes, boo, right, boo, work, boo, dip, boo. And we may all get that and get our life. The minute it drops on VH1, bam, I lose control over how that is perceived by everyone else.
Well, my question. Oh, go ahead.
Wait, let me just finish. My concern is not the women, or even because if I'm driving to move, bitch, get out the way, get out. If I'm driving to that feel good, can't nobody tell me I'm not empowered in that moment. So if a woman is listening to, I got this wet ass gushy, and she feels empowered, far be it from me to step in the room and be like, that's not empowering, boo. Don't do that. But what my concern was, and the reason I asked those questions, I thought they were sincere, is once we drop it into that oil of capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, misogyny, and racism, once we drop it into that hot oil, it no longer rings with whatever authenticity you're finding in your own home with it. And that's the part where I become concerned. I'm not, because I'm concerned with it as I started the conversation. I was concerned with it with black men and how hip hop was taken. And we're saying now blackness is this thing that you gotta, this is blackness, right? Because hip hop is saying this is blackness. And all of us on the thread are able to talk about maleness pre-hip hop that had a degree of elegance to it. And that elegance goes away in hip hop, and this whole male thing comes on with hip hop that we got to be and do and act. And that is because the hip hop, which had authentic cultural expression, was dropped into white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism, and then shifted it and morphed it. And Angela-Renee, how do you feel? Well, I just want Jamal, because I know
that's what I was about to ask her. I was wanting to ask her. I was to your point, piggybacking. I was wanting to ask Angela-Renee, given what Brian is saying, and given the idea circling this back around to reality television, the fact that Cardi B started out as a reality television star who was already branded by the machine that is the reality television industry. Well, the television industry all by itself, but in the context of reality, before she dropped Bodak Yellow, before she dropped anything. So my question to you is, how does that change or inform the way that she perceives herself, what she's able to do, what statements she's able to make as a woman, what agency she has. In other words, how does that play its part? That's what makes her different from Lil' Kim. You know what I mean? Or
there's that. I mean, she started out for us as a brand. So the content, right, that she is producing and her art form still fits into her caricature. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And she may have to stay there for a while. Like, I think you guys were talking about earlier, how hard it is for you to separate yourself from your caricature, from your reality television perception, you know, and how they take situations and juxtapose them as frankenbiting, and they're mixing stuff up to give you a perception.
Right.
She may have to stay in that for a minute. I mean, other reality television stars, Nene and all these other folks, try to come away from their, you know, catty, right, you know, their catty personalities that were, you know, like what do we call it? Watching the train wreck. You just can't turn away. Like, wow, you know, it's great for viewership, but then, you know, like, she's not very likable as a person, and so she has to, you know, she was trying to grow up or grow out of that. I don't know if Cardi B is there yet. She's still young, and you know, I mean, she's a mother and a wife or something, or a partner. She has a partnership, and I think for now, this is her lane. And she's going to ride it out until the wheels fall off. And maybe at some point, like we've seen with Snoop Dogg or LL Cool J or Ice Cube or Ice-T, they will start to come away from the character that they've played, you know, in their art forms.
Yeah, we always see when the star reaches a certain level of power, then they have a greater amount of agency or a level of autonomy. Like Viola Davis is now at a place where she says, I'm not working with hair people if they don't know about black hair. But what's so sad about the business, a lot of people don't know, is that she had to suffer all of those years because she was not a big enough star, because she didn't mean as much money to men, to white men, to labels, to networks and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking about one of my greatest heroines. Her name is Bishop Yvette Flunder. She's the woman who sang lead on the song "Thank You, Lord." Thank you, Lord. Oh, you done. She is a lesbian. She has been married to Shirley Miller over 30 years. I mean, they've been together. And Shirley Miller is the lady who sings the original lead on "Oh Happy Day." So they've been together all these years, loving one another. When Yvette Flunder was at the height of her career in the gospel industry, she was offered a contract to go on her own. And she's one of the greatest singers I've ever heard. She said, well, I'm going to need to be myself. They said, well, no, you can't say that you're gay. They said, just don't talk about it in your music, or don't say anything about it if you're interviewed or anyone asks you. She said, oh, no, I'm going to have to be myself. She said, so I'm not going to take the contract. So it's that kind of person who says, I don't care how much money you throw at me. I'm not going to live and be this caricature or this puppet for you people, because there is no guarantee that I'll get to a level of star power to where I can finally make my own decisions. Or in that rise, will I have done so much stuff that I have completely lost myself, so I don't even know what to ask for in my power.
Well, let me see this about like Cardi B. I think she absolutely has enough power, money, or whatever to do whatever she wants at this point, right? This is her life. This is who she is at this point. When she gets to be maybe 35, it might be a different story. But she's there. She's in her pocket right now. Or in the pocket, as musicians say, she's there. So I don't think she necessarily has any reason to do anything differently now. And I don't think it has to do with money or power or anything like that. This Viola Davis situation from before, that's different. Cardi B is not there. She can do whatever she wants.
No, I mean, I get all that, but I was giving an example of Yvette Flunder, who had the opportunity to be at the top tier in the industry.
And said no.
She was on the hottest album that entire year with one of the largest music families in not just gospel but in music. She was with the Hawkins. So she said, no, I don't want to. So I'm talking about the people, just recognizing people who can say, oh, I don't want to be a part of that, because that's the business and that's not me, and I'm not going to compromise that much. So what I'm saying is, there are people who say, I don't care about that. I don't care about how much money I might be able to make or when I'll be able to call the shots. I'm going to do this my way from the beginning. That's what I was highlighting.
And as someone's mentioning here,
I think.
I just saw somebody was mentioning
Jamal,
about Cardi's mixtapes and stuff like that. Yes, she had that, but she wasn't quite the star that we know her now. She became who she is to us through her reality television show. Yes, she was doing mixtapes and she had her music, but it wasn't until after her hit what was it, Love and Hip Hop or something?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that she became who she is to the world.
Because we also have to, in today's time, mixtape culture doesn't extend as far as it used to.
Yeah, that's still considered underground. Yeah.
In the tri-state area are completely familiar with Drew Carter. But as I talked to people in other areas, they were like, no, like you're saying, they were like, I had no idea who she was to Love and Hip Hop.
But I think that statement was more to my point that the idea is that she was being asked to sort of be a cast member of that television show because she was seen in the context of her mixtape, which is to the idea that her personality and her persona and her strip appeal and all that kind of stuff was already fully formed in a context. She had branded herself versus the show branding her. I think that's what Crystal's statement was for.
Okay.
I agree. I think that a lot of the women and men that do reality television have other products and brands that precede their stepping onto the scene on reality television. But as many people speak about reality TV, it gives them a platform that makes it exponential. So Cardi B, we don't know, and really, I don't want to make it too much about Cardi B because it's not just about her. Because do we know that if Cardi B had to just do a tape and rap, would she have gotten to the Met Gala based on her bars? Right? Would she have gotten to interview Joe Biden yesterday based on her bars? Right? Is it the bars that you're spitting and the music you're making, or is it the entire package? And the reason the moment is important to me is not because I think Cardi B should have whatever she wants to. I think she's doing great. Meaning she has
and she's an intelligent woman. She's an intelligent woman, and she is using her platform, in different ways, not just the caricature. She is using her platform in different ways. And like I said, she's riding the wagon until the wheels fall off. And I can't fault her for that. I really can't. Let her go ahead. When it becomes different for her, it'll become different for her. The same way, like I guess when we were talking about Ice Cube,
right?
Raising a family. He came away from, NWA, et cetera. Ice-T came away from the whole gang culture and all of that. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. But Darell was like, yeah, I can't be in jail. So they grew up, LL Cool J wasn't along the same lines as those guys, but, which I think says a lot about his longevity in the industry, even to his performing still. I mean, I think I saw him at Barclays maybe last year, and the crowd went nuts. Same thing with Run DMC, went nuts. So I think, once you're able to transition out of what you came through, I think that's all for the better. Mm-hmm. And if she can do that, or not just she, there's so many others. If they can do that.
What about I was just going to ask about reality.
What Crystal is saying is, well, I was going to just say this really, Crystal. Crystal was saying that her whole shtick was, if you're going is to have agency over yourself and do it like this. Right. And my challenge to that with Cardi B, with hip hop, period, when hip hop becomes commercialized, is how much agency do you really have? And
that's debatable.
We can see the agency that we really have. Donald Trump becomes president because he's a white male. So with his ridiculousness and his shtick, because his shtick was going on long before he went on to reality TV. New York, he was doing that stealing, cheating shtick, and he was like, I'm going to win at this branding game. And he won at the branding game. He got sued. He was a horrible person at what he was doing.
He was a horrible businessman, too. He was a horrible businessman who bankrupted, what I think you said, at the Atlantic City casino. Bankrupted
Atlantic City, period. Yeah.
And he had a huge amount of startup capital. So it's not like he started out dirt poor.
No, but his brand was money. His brand
was still money.
I'm saying to speak further to the fact that he is completely incapable of doing anything. He did not start off with $4 in a duffel bag coming to. He started off with a huge amount of money that was given to him, and he fumbled on.
Cardi B by comparison has been far better at everything she's done.
What do you say, Brian?
He had enough agency. I was saying he has enough agency to be his own producer, right? So he comes out and he's like, I'm producing my own show. So hold on, let me get there. Where I'm going with this is the white man at the top of the patriarchy of white supremacy, he can be a buffoon in any way he wants to, or even if Donald Trump was, let's say, smart, he has enough agency to boost himself up, jump over any pitfalls, be the arbiter of his thing, make sure he has all the lighting and things, bells and whistles that go. And then when we conflate that with reality TV, we conflate that with social media, we get a president. Now we're going to look at the men. We look at the black men who do it. So we look at Ice Cube, Ice-T. They had Will Smith. There's a lot of people, black men in hip hop, who had a whole career before they started their television career. They didn't do reality TV, but they were able to say, I'm going to legitimize myself by becoming an actor. I'm going to study another craft and try to become a legitimate, quote unquote, actor. And their agency allows them to go forward. Now we go to women in the patriarchy, right? We go into women and we go into black women, right? So Candy Burroughs has more money than almost everybody, right? She's written everything. She's done all these things. She goes into the reality thing. She's able to keep her agency outside of the reality TV world and still connect to it. She's one of the few that I still think is able to extradite herself from it and still go to it. Everybody else that I see that ends up connecting to it, like a lot of the white women who are on it, Lisa Rinna, become a part of how the reality TV kind of weighs on you and drags your branding into it, as opposed to you using it as a platform to make it part of your branding. I think Cardi B had a whole following beforehand, and she was able to come on that show and use it as a platform as she's jumped to the next platform. But what we'll see over time is if Cardi B will be one of the first in the patriarchy, coming from that space of it, needing the producer, if she's ever able to really extradite herself and be whatever she chooses to be, and not feel that she needs to be in a space where she has to make it.
And then look, just from a line of history in women having to deal with men with their career and the choices they want to make. Natalie Cole was not given the support she should have been given from Capitol Records. Her father, it's called The House That Nat Built. That's what Capitol Records is called. When she wanted to do that duet album, they were like, girl, no. But she was still under contract. So the grace that they gave her was to free her from her contract. And they shot themselves in the foot because it made all the money. It was an amazing piece of art. But again, it was another example of a woman having to go to men saying, I want to do this with my art. Just like some months back, Megan Thee Stallion was all in the news and she was talking and stuff like that because she wanted to do something, but her manager, whoever, was like, well, no, that's not in your contract. So she was like, I had to go in and renegotiate my contract. So that's what I always bring up when people say, oh, they boss, they are boss, they bad. But she was just silenced not too long ago by men. As we talk about the business, we're not talking about the right for them to make this music or not, or what they want to talk about, whether if they want to be half naked or in business suits or whatever. We're talking about men keeping them from their complete level of agency and autonomy, what they can or cannot say. She had to go back and say, well, I didn't want to break my contract. I wanted to renegotiate it. That came out of her mouth. So we're seeing again, the root of what we're talking about these questions, I feel, is women having to go to men to express themselves.
And that's the fight. That's the fight.
It was one of the
things. That's why I think so many people are so sensitive about why. Even if it's not something that they subscribe to, it's like, yo, let them be. That's their thing. That's their expression. Let them be. And like I said, we can go back and look at LaWanda Page and Millie Jackson and those women who were expressing themselves and their sexuality freely in their art. And so, yeah, that's the fight. We really don't want to have to go to you, you know, or through you to say, you know, this is what you're us.
Yeah.
And one thing from historic literature, if we look at how even further back, what was Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, the 20s, there's a scene where she's about to record in the studio. And she said, I'm not doing nothing until I get my Coca-Cola. Everybody was like, oh my God, her musicians, everybody, why you make? So the white man had to go get her a Coca-Cola. She said, I put up with too much shit. She said, what I'm going to have is my Coca-Cola before I sing a single note. So we are looking at a line of history, like through history, how women have had to fight men and win. I won over here, but Lord, I got to duck down right
all
here.
my life I had to, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
go to Color Purple. I mean, y'all should know.
Having to go to men to get money and to get permission.
Yeah.
But speaking of men, I mean, I think that was my biggest problem with all of it. I had much less reaction to the actual video than I did to Republican James Bradley. I think he's a congressional candidate, and he came out within hours, you know, and he felt like he needed holy water in his ears, and he felt so bad for all the girls that, you know, that this was a role model, and then he politicized it by pointing out that Kamala Harris had called Cardi B a role model, or, you know, sort of sang her praises in some way, shape, or form. And then it became, oh, here's an example of how the Democratic Party is going down, you know, just sliding down into the pits of hell, supporting, you know, this wet ass, I can't, you know, I mean, that was, and I was so pissed about that because, go ahead.
And I know Angela has to go soon, but this is what I think, what I came through all of that is, I think what our role is as men who consider ourselves human beings, because if you're a good human being, you should take care of other good human beings, no matter what gender they are. But as a good human being who knows that there's patriarchy and knows that there's constructs of gender, what I think our job is to stand in front of women and say they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. I think that it's to stand as guard and say, don't say. The way we get to take down rape culture is by telling men don't rape women. Period.
Right. We have to be sentinels for that. We have to be sentinels for that. We have to be able to
protect Black women.
Rape culture is not created by the bodies.
Right. It's not.
And for me, I have throughout my entire
rape
life.
Culture is created by men. Patriarchy.
We have a little pause. For me, I have my entire life been educated, or my blind spots, patriarchy. I've always been called out by women. I've always they've been like, well, no, even if you had the best intention, baby, that's not the way to look at this. And then I move on to help other men and speak on certain things. But I feel like we have to have these conversations with women. They just need to be handled a particular way, and we should listen more than we speak, and we should lean in, have a notepad. Like, I think we really have to.
Well, say again, Brian.
To that end, Darell, Angela-Renee, there's a question on the floor. I said to that end, DeLeo says, I'd like to hear what Angela-Renee thinks should happen in the industry. I'm assuming he means regarding women and liberation of women within it.
You know, we were talking, I think maybe offline, about Queen Latifah, MC Lyte, Moni Love, you know, Sister Soldier. There were several women that came, you know, that are the legends of hip hop, where this wasn't an issue at all, right? It wasn't about they weren't being sex symbols. You know, not to say that they're not beautiful women, but they were expressing themselves, and they were talking about unifying and coming together. So that one. Right, exactly. You know what I mean? And I think you remember? So what I think needs to happen in the industry is, I don't want to say what I think needs to happen in the industry. I would like to see more of that. I'm not dissing Cardi B at all. I think she is clever and enterprising, and all of those things that make her who she is. But I would like to see more of the unifying, the fronts of women that are uplifting each other. That's just my personal opinion. And I don't care if the industry dictates that or not. That's a matter of us. I mean, even with Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce coming together to do what the Savage song.
Savage.
Okay, all right. I would just like to see more of that.
Yeah, I would also love to see. We've talked about this offline too, and I know this is sort of like really pie in the sky. I would love to see more women in power on the record executive level. Meaning, I would like so that to Darell's point earlier, when these women are going to get permission from or being given instructions about or being produced by, that there is a woman involved here and a woman involved over there. I mean, the thing that Barbara Walters respected Oprah for so much is that Oprah decided, you know what, I'm going to own the network, or I'm going to own my show. Well, before she owned the network, before there was OWN, she actually owned the production company that created the Oprah Winfrey Show. And that was something that Barbara Walters in her book Audition said, I had never even thought about that. That never even dawned on me to do that. And so, but what that did for Oprah is it gave her a certain level of agency. So now the decision-making, the financial savvy, the coin in general was going to Oprah. It wasn't about a 20-80 split. It was, no, this is all me. And so and I would love to see some version of that. And like I said, I know it seems very pipe dreamish to happen inside of the industry that way, the music industry that way. So that now when Cardi goes out and does and talks about her wet ass gushy, she is making more of the money, more of the financial decisions, more of the creative decisions, more of all of that. I would love to see that so that we can have a different conversation.
I'm pretty sure she's owning all that, and there are women executives. I believe she's still in Atlantic Records, and there are Black women executives that are handlers of Cardi B, etc. There is that in place. But I also want to touch on the fact that even though you're saying that, Jamal, there are the Mona Scott Youngs, who are pioneering and spearheading their own, television shows, etc. And they may not look like, what we want them to look like, but okay, so it's twofold. It's just twofold. It's twofold. So, yes, we may.
Something to look.
No, well, let me say something for Jamal as far as like his pie in the sky idea. I think that should be the vision.
Darell,
What?
we gotta let Angela go.
Oh,
Darell, we gotta let Angela go. She gotta go at 9:15.
bye, boo.
Because I knew when you said Mona Scott Young
I was backing up.
But I knew that you were gonna.
I mean, you really did. And I went
a jumping jack and a toe tie. But,
Yeah, it was a pleasure, though.
but wait,
I can't wait to do it again. Come on, Brian.
I want to thank you so much, Angela-Renee Coakley, for coming on. Appreciate your voice. We appreciate everything you brought to the conversation. We will have you again in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. We love you. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
I love you guys.
Love you, baby.
Take care. Thanks. I enjoyed being here. Good night.
Awesome. Love you.
I just wanted to say.
So this is what
I just real quick to continue what Jamal was saying about the pie in the sky. I think that's the vision. Women doing more. So the everyday mission is getting one more woman in the room, one more woman in charge, one more woman that can make decisions. Because the step that Barbara Walters made allowed Oprah to run further. Barbara Walters was not allowed. She talked about it. She was not allowed to do her interviews in the network.
She's right.
She started doing them on locations.
Yes.
So that's where that thing came from. Two people in a chair in a room. Barbara Walters helped establish that, which gave Oprah the leg up. But Oprah watched her. Oprah said when she first started doing interviews, she said she knew that Barbara had cards. And she said my cue cards didn't even have anything on them at first. She said I would look down at the cards and I would talk, because she said I saw Barbara Walters do that. So the vision is if I would love to see if a company where if a woman is the lead artist, 85% of management is female.
Yeah. Well, and let me just be clear too. And Oprah definitely paid that back. Just I have to say this because I brought it up.
Oh yeah.
But she paid it forward. I mean, or paid it back. And literally, she paid it forward and she paid it back because when it was time for Barbara Walters to retire, Oprah got everybody: Katie Couric, Connie Chung, Diane Sawyer, everybody. They all came to pay tribute to and give this woman the flowers that she deserved. And Oprah spearheaded that entire thing. So I just wanted to say that she was definitely inspired by Barbara Walters to do everything that she did. Carry on.
Well, all I can say is this. I know that we are operating. So I think in conclusion, the system and structure is in place. And I know this. No matter what color or gender the people in charge of the system and structure is, the system and structure will maintain its behavior unless we shift that. So even as Black men, as we create this platform, as we go forward, it can't just be we get to the point where we are in power and they're doing the same things as white supremacist patriarchy, just painted chocolate. We got to make sure that the systems and the structures change the way they operate. It's not just about getting in charge, because you can get, as we say in the phrase all the time, all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
That's true.
All gay men ain't brothers, and all people who have been marginalized, all women are not a monolith, right?
Right.
And as my grandmother,
people are not a monolith.
Right. And as my grandmother used to say, ultimately, she would say, Wilch, you know you can put lipstick on a hog, don't you?
I used to think that was in the Bible. I'm just saying.
Right.
I heard it so much. I was like, isn't it in Ezekiel? If I'm opening Ezekiel, am I going to find that in there? Because I really...
Book of Kardisha B. Isn't that... Well, because I think that I know that the system is hard. So even as a Black gay male, when I want to create content for myself, for people that I can speak to, for the story that I know well, I still have to put it in a system where I can sell it. And when I start having to sell it, that system is capitalism. And if capitalism and patriarchy are leading the day, it's going to be whatever is the biggest seller within that. So I start to have to diminish my content in order to make the maximum money, which is why I want to encourage everybody that ever hears the sound of my voice to move from the spirit of enough. And if you move from the spirit of enough, that you're already enough, what you need to speak may be less than what they're offering. So that you have the ability. I believe that real success is the ability to say no. That's success to me. Yes. Like yes, Chris. Like Issa Rae has her own record label. She places lots of artists on that show. And trust me, because I'm old as dirt, I pick up a lot of the current music from Issa Rae on that. I don't look it. On the album, I pick up a lot of stuff from Issa Rae. So having Issa Rae, having Michaela Cole in London with I May Destroy You. If you've seen I May Destroy You, you are missing something. Having those voices, then I know this. The more balance we have in the industry, the less pressure. So, I may not like Biggie Smalls and the pressure where I got to listen to Biggie and Jay-Z and 50 Cent and this. But I may love a Biggie Smalls if I got Biggie Smalls on Tuesday, Common on Wednesday,
Faith Evans
on Thursday. If you have a tapestry of people that are making different kinds of music, thank you, Jamal, but different kinds of music and different kinds of connections, then you don't hang all of your coats on one thing, right? So there's a place for it all, but it's the fact that once we get to a capitalist, white supremacist patriarchy, a misogynist society, it leaches out of the thing that you have made that is really authentic and beautiful. It is sucking out of it the thing that is the most sale. What's going to sell the fastest? Reality TV didn't start off with all women shows. It used to be everything, but what women and their fighting became more interesting for a televised view and brought more commercial viewership and brought more sponsorship. So that is what sells.
Yeah. Well, and what are we talking about? And we're just to bring it back to reality television. I mean, the Cardi B conversation, as far as agency and power and control and empowerment in off screen, has to do specifically with the conversation about Cardi B. You know what I mean? As a Black woman in this context. But of course, the bigger reality television context is not just about women. It's about people. It's about people who are being exploited in a reality television context.
And in that, go ahead. I was going to say, in a reality television context, what we end up with is recreating the system and structure that we already live in, and then flattening it and making it fast track. So when we see Donald
and
Trump,
thus more dangerous and more pernicious.
And what happens is Donald Trump, with his stupidity, gets to be the president because he is a stock character. And I will say this, not taking anything away from Cardi B as a woman, because she may be uber talented, but if Cardi B didn't show up, that moment was going to happen for somebody, because it's a stock character. If Nene Leakes wasn't a housewife, somebody would have been Nene Leakes. It would have been Jana James. If it wasn't, and these are stock characters, and stock characters make the most money. And every now and then, a stock character becomes aware, which a producer hates. Because now, hopefully, what I hope we're seeing is that Cardi B, in her interviewing Joe Biden, in her speaking about in defense of her work that she wants to do, in her being in a movie, is able to say, you know what, I'm not just a stock character. I am more than this stock character. I always have been, I always will be. That's what, and so then if she wants to WAP on Tuesday and interview Joe Biden on Wednesday, we can take that seriously. If she wants to say, go ahead, Darell.
And just to shed some light on stock characters, I mean, where was I interested in theater history with like Roman neoclassical theater? There was the father, there is the mother, and those stock characters trickle down into like the father that's comedic, the mother that is stern, and then you have the different kinds of children. So there's the framework. So like you said, she was dropped down to, that was her opportunity, that was her moment, she ran with it. The thing that happens with that is, like you said, they become aware, or they just start being like a human. They're like, wait a minute, I can't be this buffoon, as many of them are. I can't be this buffoon all the time. But what I do want to say about the whole WAP video, the part that I enjoyed the most was not the content. It was not the coochie mopping. It was not
the split. Come on.
It was not. It was the 1995 molded bang over here with a sash of hair right here, and then pin curls. It was Easter. It was the choir concert. It was 8th grade dance. It was the prom. Listen, I have watched that video so many times, and I have seen nothing but, I thought about hype hair. I thought about the magazines like Mary and all that in the grocery store lined up in the black section. I used to go to Barnes and Nobles and look at the different hype hair magazines, all that kind of stuff, or in the grocery store in the hood. They had more variety. But I do love what they brought back with that. I mean, I was looking at the video, I was smelling Pump It Up Spritz, just vodka and Jolly Rancher. All I was smelling as I was watching the video.
Well, this is the thing. I think that I think there is, and what I wanted to say about Beyond the Thread is that I think the important part that both, because all three of the women that I spoke to, four, because I also spoke to Sophia Stevens, who was also speaking about how she saw the exploitation. And what I got from all three of the women is that everybody's coming from their experience, and we all want the same things.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Every woman I spoke to wants women to have sexuality and be able to express it. Every woman I spoke to wants people to be respected for who they are. They all want me to be able to be in protection and let them speak. And they also want to be able to be in advocacy for me as well. So I know that a lot of the times, me and Crystal Joy chopped it up for 30 minutes about it, where we want everybody to be free. And what Crystal's question was to me, well, what might it look like if this was not that? So what I see sometimes when I see hip hop, not hip hop the original, hip hop the illegitimate exploited cousin of hip hop, right? What I see is the commercialized version of it. I see Massa's hand all over it. So when I see, and I'm going to be specific about WAP, when the whole entire video stops for Kylie Jenner to walk through and then walk into a room fully clothed, I was like, well, I'm lost. Because let's get here. If WAP was the video, my musical theater people out there, you're gonna laugh at this. If she was a video, the Cardi B and Megan have done 17 dance numbers. They've sang 3 solos. They've done 14 monologues and 6 soliloquies. They've done 4 wig changes, and they've done splits on chairs and Dance with Dangerous Animals. And then they step into, and then Kylie comes through and she walks down and she has one line in the musical and she gets the Tony. And I'm not sure that Kylie is leaving with a Tony from that or any, but the whole song stopped for Kylie Jenner. And I was like,
and then I'm like, so why can't we see what's going on in Kylie Jenner's room? Is she the high dollar hoe? Does she have more virtue so we can't look in on her folly? That part.
I didn't interpret it that she was the highest paid courtesan, but
I mean, but
that's not what it was.
But I mean, for me, and I'm gonna just say this is my opinion. Y'all ain't got to take nothing to the bank on this. Why couldn't a black woman have that cameo? Why couldn't a black woman be the high price? Because you got all these other girls scooting and booting and coochie mopping and all that kind of carrying on, and then here come the white girl with a whole new bald face and body, and she gets to look slyly and walk into the room, but we're not privy to what she does because we don't
right.
get that.
And out of the whole WAP moment, that was my biggest issue. The whole WAP moment, I was like, why those girls? Because let me tell you something. Whether you like it or not, Cardi and Megan were working for their nerves. They dropped down.
They really did.
They did
different parts of the gluteus moved in tandem in different directions.
I mean, Megan was in a full split, rolled her arm up the leg, looked back at the other leg, and both of her knees were straight, by the way.
And she shot that more than once. So
she stretched through the knee.
The front and the back. And what our friend Latrice says is that reality TV isn't reality. It's reality acting. And it exploits everybody. And the problem I'm having with reality TV, it diminishes everything to the stock character and the lowest common denominator. And although we all take it in as something that is kind of like, oh, I don't take it seriously, it becomes an insidious part of your characterizations and ideals. And if you're not really conscious, because it's not trying to make you conscious, it's trying to make you turn off. It's something that's supposed to be fun. The problem is, once you step into it, as I'm seeing it, and I've never been on a reality TV show, I don't know that I ever will be. But when I look at it, I see people.
I watched that.
I know you would. I'm watching people not be able to get it off of them. I'm watching them put their hands in it, and you cannot wipe clean of it. So you step into it, and now you're stuck in it. And it's like, unlike the Minnie Mouse thing that I said in the beginning, when you walk into a park and you help Minnie, you put Minnie Mouse on, you do that character, you take it off, you go on about your business. You cash your check, Disney cashes their check, you've done that, you go on about your business. In the reality TV thing, it creates a persona that unless you have really diligently worked hard to create a human being that lives outside of it, that's what it sits in. Part of the reason people believe Donald Trump to be a smart person is because that's what he played on TV.
Because he played someone who was actually training apprentices. The show's called The Apprentice.
He wishes he was as smart as Vivica Fox. He wishes he was as smart as Star Jones. And then for them to have to be up there getting fired by Donald J. Trump, and then we see him, and now we're stuck trying to fire him.
And then during his campaign, you have Sarah Palin saying to a whole bunch of dumb Americans, yes, he commands fire. You remember that? Y'all remember that? Don't act like you forgot.
I wiped her out.
But here's the gag. Here's where reality TV comes in those stock characters. Sarah Palin gets to play Kylie Jenner. In that moment, she gets to be a pretty thin white woman who those men think is. It's just like how people lost their minds over Michelle Obama's major toned, healthy shoulders, and then look at Melania and say, because that is reality TV, because it's a hoop that you're jumping through that's designed to catch you by the foot and make you fall on your face. I'm gonna say it again. The hoop that you're jumping to catch you by your foot and make you fall on your face. You have
because
to.
You don't clear it. I mean, and even I can't watch it because it is actually corrosive for me. But like again, all of it's going back to the lack of discernment. People cannot separate the hairstyle they select when they go into the salon, the language that they choose when they go off on the cashier at the Dollar General because they shorted them a dime because they see somebody on TV going off on somebody, all that kind of stuff. Even to how like makeup, like so I see so many people, because I'm not gonna say just women, because men, the lady boys, all that kind of stuff, they have their face beat as if they're going on camera and they just at the Best Buy. And that makeup is not to be seen from 1 foot away.
I didn't have, I'm gonna be totally superficial here in saying that all of that's valid, and yet none of those were. I don't even think I got to the Kylie Jenner. Well, I probably didn't recognize that was Kylie Jenner. Anyhow,
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say I didn't know it was. But what I guess the biggest challenge I had with the whole video, watching the whole video, is, and this may be an X versus Z or X versus millennial sort of preference thing that is not new as far as sort of generational warfare. My biggest issue is I was watching the video and the thing going, okay, this is not a new trope. This is not a new anything. It's just a new execution. And I just preferred the ones from our generation. I mean, I preferred How Many Licks just as a song, as a production. I like the sample. I like the fact that it referenced Knight Rider, which is aging me, even though
yeah.
You
didn't remember the plot.
Yeah, right. I appreciate it. I like the narrative. I like the flow. I like the video. I mean, so what was challenging?
The art back then was better. Now,
right, the only thing challenging for me, I mean, I had no prudish kind of immediate knee-jerk response, and which isn't to say that I shouldn't have. Perhaps I should have been a little bit more critical in looking at the video. But really, the only thing I did is go, I mean, we've seen this, and I thought when we did it back in the 90s, I just thought it was,
Well,
which is why I was attached to that bang and them pin curls and this one piece of hair hanging down to the side.
Yeah.
But I think, I think context is key, and I think the context that we came up with, I think the context we came up with here is that the structure that it sits within is where the problem becomes.
That is true. It's not about whether or not it was good. This is one of those times, and we could do an entire, everyone please understand, we could do a whole hour and a half or two just on whether or not it was good in the sense of art.
Or whether Cardi B is the rapper that Megan Thee Stallion is, or whether any of them could really get in a room and spit bars against Lil' Kim. Latrice says this needs to change because Black women are beauty and power. We can't allow money to drive us. Money can't win. It does nothing for us. Our minds, our spirits are way more important. We are better than that. That's the perspective. And as Latrice says that, another perspective people have is that I need to make my coin. I need to make this dough. And I understand both sides of it because as a Black man, we live in capitalism. So at no point can I shroud myself in a burqa and only do what I fully believe in fully. I do think this, and this is what I think for all of us, and I think it happens to women, but it's all of us. Mm-hmm. If we do not move from the place of enough, I am enough internally. So no money I get will ever make me better than what I feel inside. Mm-hmm. So if I work internally as I gain money, the choices that I make with this money will be there to value who I am in the inside. And if that truth is coming out, we'll see it. So if it's sexual, if it's violent, if it's angry, if you are really working to be full and whole internally, mm-hmm. that I believe, this is my belief, that expression will come through your art, which is why I became an artist, right? Because to me, when you have to do the craft of, and this is why I don't like reality TV fully. I can laugh at it, I can joke with it, I know who the people are. But the reason I don't like it is because I think it would be so much better if those housewife shows were scripted TV shows. Like when it was Wisteria Lane, how good and how much more redeeming would it be? And how many more things could we show with actual acting? We would do this as a piece of art, and then we could make stories and tell things and have fully circular characters and have people gain things from it, and it could be exponential. But that process is the process that takes more money and is not produced. So what I'm likening reality TV to is the same thing I'm likening hip hop to, is the same thing that we can liken food to. A McDonald's hamburger, when it first created, is a all beef, literally, really, all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, and onions on a sesame seed bun, made with real ingredients. Then we start to mass produce it. And we start to poison all kinds of foods to mass produce it to the point where we have to have a section that says organic. My husband's from Dominica. He's like, fruit comes from a tree, you take it and you eat it. What is the organic portion? It is, and we look at islands.
Isn't it an organism already?
Well, we look at Caribbean culture in an American context and we look down our noses at it. And I'm like, organic is what food should be. All of this process is the part that's killing everybody. But that's what I think they do with art. The squishing it down, marginalizing it, and then poisoning it ends up poisoning the consumer.
Sure.
So that happens with food. Go ahead.
And to speak on one thing from the place of enough, I found this quote because I really do miss Melissa Harris Perry every Sunday.
I do too.
In regards to her refusal to sign her NDA from MSNBC, she did not care about the money. She said, "Let me just be really clear. The reason I wouldn't sign the NDA wasn't because I wanted to talk about MSNBC. She said I wouldn't sign it because I'm an academic. Even in my very first book, before I ever even thought about a TV show, I wrote about race and media. The word BET was in my first book, Barbershops, Bibles, and BET." She said, I could not have an agreement that closed off the possibility that I could write about anything ever. I wasn't leaving mad, I was leaving hurt. So she was not swayed about the money they were throwing at her. She said, I'm an academic, which means partly I earn a living and I'm completely fine. Going back to Yvette Flunder, she said, I don't need your record deal because I've always paid my mortgage. I always take care of my bills. So I don't need this or that. So I just wanted to bring that another example of women who have said, I'm doing this my way. I don't care how much money or fame could possibly be attached to me doing it your way.
Well, but that's the part that becomes difficult to do, right? Because if you give me money for whatever I'm doing here, and you say, okay, now we're gonna give you some more money to do that, and I upgrade my house, and I upgrade my car, and I upgrade my face, and I upgrade my body with that money. Now I am hooked onto something that I cannot release. And the reason I think it's so dangerous is because it deadens the critical analysis of what it is that you're doing. The reason I love art is because you have to be a critical thinker in order to create it, in order to keep it going. And you have to be connected to what's come before you in the art. And then you have to stand on it and create something that's going to be new because it's going to be authentic from you. And it creates a craft around it. And so I love the act of making a piece of art, no matter what the content of that art is. And then having it leveled against other art and having that balanced conversation, because the applause are being balanced by the work, are being balanced by the celebrity moment. I'm going to say this again, without reality TV, the stock characters in our celebrity-driven culture, without social media, we do not have a Trump presidency. We have a Trump presidency because we flattened out the critical analysis of human experiences. And we allow people to represent something just because we feel like it represents something in us. And we don't connect. And we stop being critical and stop looking for expertise. We start going, oh, she sang, she's a singer too. Oh, he danced, he's a dancer too. Oh, he speaks well, he's a politician too. I speak very well, and maybe I'll go into politics one day. But guess what? I'm not a lawyer. And I can argue anybody down to the ground. I'm not a lawyer. That doesn't mean I can walk into a courtroom and win a case. And even though I won one, that doesn't make me a lawyer. And so when I look at Cardi B, when I look at reality TV, I see people that want to be famous. I see people who are taking trying to make some money out of something. Either they're at the end of their career or they're trying to break into a career. But as I see the numbers of it, I see one Cardi B, not 20. I see one. And hopefully she is able to fully detach from the whole persona of it. And Cardi B becomes her own entity on its own that has no connection to that persona that I guess he had some technical difficulties. to that persona.
He's still here.
He's here. But to that persona and to all of that, I think that is what I really think is really exciting for me about watching her make that transition. I was so excited when I saw her in Hustlers. Now, although that was more of the same branding, my hope is that at some point she goes, I want to be an actor, or I want to be a public speaker. And she transitions and is able to, because the ones that I think are able to do it, unfortunately, I'm going to sound old, but are from our generation, right? I think that when you look at Cher or Madonna, whether you like their content or not, they were like, I'm doing this. When you look at Diana Ross, she goes, I'm doing this. This is me. I'm leaving Motown Records and I'm going over here. And it's going to be me that makes these choices. I'm sure she's had to make compromises, as we all do. So, but my hope is that everybody is able to look at the art and shift from the selling of a portion of yourself as the totality of yourself. Because that's the part that makes me most sad. When I see Black people specifically have to sell a portion of themselves that is the most salacious part of themselves in order to be the fullness, in order to get money, actually. And they do it because they think they're going to eventually be able to let it go and be full, and it never lets go of them.
Right.
Right. I don't think Kim Kardashian can ever go back to what she used to look like.
Once it's been cut away.
Is there surgery involved? I mean,
yeah, you can't tack it back on. They throw that out. But again, going back to money.
You're on punishment.
You broke arrest. Where's the
I'm
mute?
saying, once you chew all the sugar out the gum, you can't do nothing with it. But again, going back to money, our dear brother, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, told those Niagara movement folk in the early ages of the NAACP, he said, at some point, y'all got to stop taking white folks' money. Because once they give you money time after time after time, they're going to start telling you how to live your life because they done gave you some money. So just another example of from history, how taking all this money can have you in a bad...
We can take it out of white folk and go all skin folk and kin folk and go back to that because Kanye West, Terry Crews, Candace Owens,
they all in part have the denominator is that they were made famous, and our dollars, our talent makes Black artists famous, our ability, but the dollar and numbers and percentages. We get made famous when white folk turn us on in their house, their car, their living room, and stuff like that. So they're still taking money from white folk.
Agreed. And I'm simply saying that what we have to also work on is not thinking that once the dollar turns a different color, that the system will change. Right?
Oh, no.
Right. So you have to actively continue to work against the structural inequity. Because if you don't work against structural inequity, potentially, because the planet is turning browner by the day, potentially you have an entire brown planet. If you have an entire brown planet in 150,000 years and everybody's brown, if we haven't changed the structure, we'll do the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment within brownness. And what we want not to do is that. We want to, and so bam, stop taking the money, as DeLeo says. And to you saying that, what we also have to do is go the spirit of enough. And I want to leave us with that. I think we all have to move from the spirit of I am enough, and whatever I do has to contribute to who I already am, as opposed to me becoming a part of what it is. It has to contribute to me, and I have to partner with it in wellness for the things that I truly believe. We have to encourage each other to fully connect to who we are. And also, in closing, as men, what our job is to do is to speak truth to other men, to speak truth to patriarchy, to stand in the gap where Meghan and Cardi will do whatever they want to do. But I want to talk to the executives at Atlantic and make sure those women are making the money they need to make. I want to make sure that they made the choices about what they look like in that video. That they said, I want this. That they said, I want it. Because once that happens, then we can, because in a perfect world, then we can really have a critical conversation about the art, whether it's good or not, whether it's helpful, whether it isn't. But as long as we're in a society where women with burqas are getting raped the same way as women with thongs are getting raped, we can't really have a nitpicky discussion about how to protect women, because there is no degree of respectability that protects women. Just like there's no degree of respectability that protects Black men. We have to work with the injustice first, and then we can talk about whether or not I think that's great, whether I think that's good.
Right.
What do you say in closing, Jamal, today?
I just want to say ditto, number one. And then also, we're in a space where it's really, really, really important to look for authenticity and not just celebrate whatever's on that makes us happy and entertained at the moment. That we need to be very, very clear and cognizant of that difference so that we can look into the eyes of that person that is on television enjoying all of that and try to get to some sense of what truth is in that person's soul as we're watching. We need to start to figure that stuff out so that we can stop supporting wholesale. And I don't mean never indulge. I mean not support it and celebrate it wholesale, not put it out there in such a way that glorifies it and then keeps the dollars going into it in this reality TV world in that way. I want to tell this really, really quick, not even story, just epiphany I had. When So You Think You Can Dance got really, really big, I constantly got asked on a regular basis, why aren't you on So You Think You Can Dance? And this was my family members. Why don't you go on So You Think You Can Dance, Jamal? Why don't you go? And one day I said this with no ego whatsoever, I said, because I know I can dance. I'm not putting it out there for a vote. I'm not putting my craft, my years and years and years of struggle and hard work and tendu and plie and flat back and all of that stuff. I'm not putting that out there so that people who have no idea what they're looking at can decide whether or not I can dance. That just seems blasphemous and disrespectful to everybody that has ever inspired, trained, coached, touched me in that craft. And it dawned on me that was the danger of that show. The show was dangerous because what it did is it led people in my family who actually are aware of all of that work to look at me and then decide, oh, well, isn't this the gold standard? Isn't this what you should be aspiring toward?
TV.
And that right there is the problem with reality television. That right there is that people got so contaminated because they weren't able to look and see whether or not this is authentic, whether or not there is anything earnest about this, and whether or not it had become contaminated by the dollar bill. And no
point in the world, Jamal, should you or I or Danny Tidwell be in an amateur contest for dancers. And many of the dancers that I know that have been it should not have been in the amateur contest for dancers. But you're forced to go there and you're forced to compete. And I say amateurs with love because we've all been amateurs. But there is a difference.
And that was the original idea of the show, wasn't it? The original idea of the show was supposed to be that this is so hard. This requires so much. All of it is challenging. So you think you can dance? Well, let's see. That was supposed to be the idea.
And the idea... I've sat on the floor and after I've sat at the foot of Tally Beatty and Martha Graham and Catherine Dunham and Milton Myers and Kevin Igojeff and Donald Byrd, and I've sat at the feet of all these people that I'm going to go onto a TV show and ask the American public who doesn't know a tandu from a batma, so I can be their favorite dancer. Right. And then come out of there and have to teach at conventions and not have a career in the field of dance. Right? Mm-hmm. Because the expectation is probably it's the same way. I'm sure you feel the same way, Darell, about The Voice or any of those shows, because we're co-opting something. So you if you can sing and you can touch people will tell you that.
Right.
People will come to you, and you'll feel it. It'll be there. And then the work, the craft will speak for itself. And the celebrity dumb, as my friend Tony said, the celebrity dumb of it all is how we end up with somebody that has no expertise. Because now we go, oh, y'all are elitists. You think you're too good to be on that. No, I've trained in a craft and I'm an expert in it. So as an expert in it, I no longer need or have the right really to be on an amateur contest. Same thing goes inversely. You're an amateur. You're not a politician. And if you become a politician, you need to have to go through all of the roles that everybody had to do to get there. So when Donald Trump has to become okay, you want to be a politician? Fine. Start at the town council and have that conversation live with the other, and then pass some legislation and get some policy done. You don't get to come down a gold escalator, ride the reality TV high, and say, I'm just going to do it great.
And that was the whole thing. It's great till you see So You Think You Can Perform the Appendectomy. When I haven't seen that show yet. So You Think You can do the triple bypass. You know,
we're watching it now because now we got the demon sperm lady that Donald Trump is supporting and kicking the Dr. Fauci to the side.
Now Brian gets to go on vocal rest. Darell, did you have any last words?
The demon lady, maybe.
Demon black. Okay. You guys all know what I'm talking about. You all know. Anyway,
in my closing considerations, I want people to learn stuff. One of my best friends, his nephew, told his sibling, they were little kids, and one sibling said, "Oh, that go to ambulance." The other sibling said, "That's a fire truck. You need to learn stuff." I want people to learn things. Take the time to learn things. And in reference to reality TV and how people get flim flam stuff like that, it's like in Chicago when the lawyer Billy Flynn says, give them the old razzle dazzle, and they forget all about the murder, they forget all about the man that was gunned down, they forget all about the affair, they forget all about due process, they forget all of that stuff. I want people to learn stuff. All reality TV, all of this stuff is centered around the psychology of the human brain, what people will take in, statistics, regionalism, yada yada, all this kind of stuff. When I went to a particular show, I won't say her name either because I don't really care about her. She sat and did. She was, what I loved was the machine of her work. She did all of her syndications. Hi Boise, so and so, so and so. Hi Long Island, so and so. Hi Baltimore. She ran through. It was like clockwork. It was machinery. That was amazing. But the fact that she had all of that down to such a science, but was still like pushing trash content, meant either she hadn't learned anything or she just decided, I'm going to ignore what I've learned so I can make money.
But this popularity allows us to abdicate responsibility, right? So we get to go, this used to ring in my ears as a child. Well, she's famous. She must be doing something right. Well, he's a multimillionaire. He know more than you. So those conversations take away the enoughness, right? So somebody wins So You Think You Can Dance and we're not on it. And then Wendy Williams gets on TV next week and goes, they just jealous. And the reality of the situation is moving from the spirit of enough, there is no jealousy. It's a choice. Right. And so I want to leave with this. I want everybody who's watching tonight to remember this. I want y'all to remember these artists that y'all are watching that have gotten you through this pandemic. I want you to remember you didn't turn on just reality TV and binge. You got sick of that because that was diminishing you. It wasn't feeding you. Yeah. When you turned on Lovecraft Country, when you turned on the binge of How to Get Away with Murder, when you turned on Fleabag on Netflix or Killing Eve or any of these shows or Queen Sugar, these artists have gotten you through this. I want you to remember that every artist that you've seen, from the bit part, from the person laying in a hospital bed, from the two people toe tapping across a tampon commercial, they auditioned, they worked, they learned, they went through years of training just to tap dance across a tampon commercial, just to lay in a hospital bed and die for 3 minutes. Those are the people. So when this country opens back up, don't start looking and be like, oh, it must be nice to do what you love. This is a craft. This is a craft that involves my mind, my body, my spirit, and my soul.
Yeah.
Every artist that does it from that place, even people who don't believe in God or soul. They are coming from the thing that moves them out in the morning to the thing that lays them down in bed at night, and they are bringing that to you. So give to these artists. These are not charities. These are people who have worked a craft just like anybody else. And when you watch that national convention, who do you think came with the lighting and the costume and the hair and the makeup and the color blue that they wore down to the tie? Those are artists.
Yeah.
Those are artists. Those are not just people randomly, stage managers and people who train their whole life. Without us, that convention that you saw would not have happened. That's what I want to leave people with tonight. Remember, the artistry and the truth of it is what's going to bring you forward. The buffoonery and the coonery can only take you so far. Donald Trump's going to learn that, or we're going to learn it the hard way. Because
it is what it is.
And it is what it is. He's not fit for the job. He ain't going to get fit, said Michelle Obama. So I think we need to go. That's our music. Thank you, everybody. Love you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Right.